Welcome everybody to the 4040 Vision podcast. I'm here today with Osama. We're going over the 24-25 NBA preview. We're going to do this by conference. We're going to run through the Eastern Conference here first, and we'll just go by division, and we'll look at the over-unders, and we'll, if Osama wants, you can tell me where he thinks they're going to rank in the conference, or we can look at that as well. So you ready to kick this off?
I am. We're starting with what used to be called the Least Conference is now the Beast Conference.
Yes, sir. All right, we're jumping here into the Atlantic Division, and the first team here is the defending champs, the Boston Celtics. Their 23-24 record, 64-18. They finished as the 1 seed, won the NBA championship. Their over-under here for 24-25 is 58.5. And let me also tell you some other interesting things that really happened for Boston this offseason. Nothing really. They didn't do much. They kind of kept their core together. So I don't think they did a lot of changes here. So what are your thoughts on the Celtics here, Osama? Tell me.
I mean, they were awesome last year. The season was pretty much over in March. They clinched the 1 seed with plenty of time before the playoffs started. They were a complete juggernaut. They kept their core that ran through the East. They're a great shooting team. They had the number 1 offense in the league with an offensive rating of 123. They were the number 3 ranked defense. Usually if you're in the top 5 in both categories, you win the championship, which they did. So, I mean, really great. I would say the only knock would be health. Porzingis was such a huge part of what they did last year. He only played 57 games and it still didn't matter. The only guy that played all 82 games was Peyton Pritchard. So I think as long as they can stay healthy, they just have so much talent with Drew Holiday they added last year, and Porzingis, and Al Horford was just such a great value add with Tatum and Brown. I don't see how they don't have the 1 seed again this year.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And are you going over on the 58.5?
Yeah. I mean, it's unless maybe the Knicks give them a run for their money and it becomes a little more difficult, but they're talented enough to get to 62 wins.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, everything you said, right? Super talented team. They're deep. Only thing that can stop them is really injuries. Cool. All right, with that, let's move on to the next team here, the New York Knicks. Before we jump into everything about them, their 23-24 record was 50-32. They were the 2 seed. The over-under here is set at 54.5. The Knicks, they did a lot of things here in the offseason. They re-signed OG, they re-signed Brunson, they re-signed Precious, and then they added guys like Mikal Bridges, right? And then they added Karl Anthony Towns through trade, and then they signed like Campaign for some depth, but they lost some guys, right? They lost Isaiah Hardenstein, they lost Bojan, Alec Burks, Randall, Dante, Devincino. So they lost some guys there, and then they picked up a few rookies. I think they made a bunch of draft day moves, but they drafted some French dude or something with the 25th pick. His name is Pacom Dait. Can't pronounce his name. And then they had some second round guys like Tyler. Yeah, and then Tyler Kolek, right? And then so they had some second round guys here. What are your thoughts here, Osama? I do like what the Knicks did, but give me your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, they were kind of a surprise last year, right? Like the Mavericks let go of Jalen Brunson. You're like, okay, I mean, they probably didn't need to. He seemed like a good player. And he was like amazing. He was so good for them last year. He was their best player above and beyond. And, now that they traded for OG, like the Knicks front office is really going for it. And they added Cat. I heard the Kid Miro on a podcast call him Bodega Cat, which I like better than the Big Bodega as his nickname. And it really just addressed the things that Randall couldn't provide, which was that perfect combination of length and shooting, which Cat gives them. There's some familiarity there with Tom Thibodeau as well from his time in Minnesota. They added Mikal Bridges. I think they were already a pretty good defensive team last year. They were 10th in defensive efficiency. Adding Bridges makes them even more stingy. This is going to be a solid team, 2 seed, unless something crazy happens. They could even, make a run at the 1 seed, but this is easily the second best team in the East at the minimum.
100% agree with you. I think they're I think we're gonna see a Knicks Celtics Eastern Conference Finals, bearing any injuries. I think that is what the East is setting up for. Like it's Knicks versus Celtics, and that's what we're hopefully gonna get, and that's what I want to see. I think this team is gonna be deep. It's gonna be dangerous. We'll see, right? How they mesh together, but definitely 2 seed, definitely hitting the over on that 54.5 as well.
Yep.
All right, let's move on over to the third team here in this division, the Philadelphia 76ers. Their record last year was 47-35. They finished with the 7th seed. Obviously, Joel Embiid, always injured. I think the other day he said, I'm never going to play back-to-backs for the rest of my career. So that just tells you where Joel Embiid's at. Over-under here is 49.5. Let's see some of their key additions here. They re-signed, obviously, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey. They brought over Paul George. They added Eric Gordon, Andre Drummond, Reggie Jackson, Caleb Martin. They lost guys, Nick Batum, Buddy Hield, DeAnthony Melton, Campaign Mobamba. And they drafted Jared McCain here at pick number 13. So I know the Sixers brought in Paul George. There's a lot of hype around him. But what do you think here, Osama? Can they do better than the 7th seed? Can they do better than 49.5?
Yeah, let's talk about this because I'm looking at the spreadsheet and you have a pretty hot take about them. You think they'll be the 8th seed, which is interesting. Here's what I think. Last year, they only got about 39 games from Joel Embiid. They did add a lot of veteran depth. They are built to make a long run in the playoffs. Maxey had a breakout year last year. Health is just the biggest thing. But they still had the 14th best offense. Not too bad given that Embiid played a pretty small percentage of the season. And they added Paul George, who went on the Clippers last year with the 4th best offense in the league. And he's a great defender. Joel Embiid's a great defender. So I think this is a good team. I have them projected at 5, but I need to hear why you think they'll be the 8th seed.
Yeah, I'm definitely taking the under on them. I just don't see it with Embiid in terms of his health, right? I don't think it's kind of the same story. It's the same script we see every year. Joel Embiid's hurt. He's not healthy enough for the playoffs, and then we all know playoff P, right? So can they go far? Can they do things? Maybe. Paul George is already hurt. He hyperextended his knee the other day. Already some injury things here. So I when fully healthy, they could be a dangerous team. I just haven't seen it between Embiid and Paul George in terms of both being fully healthy and kind of carrying them. And I think there's better teams here in the East, honestly, right? Like I think we'll get to them, but the Magic, the Pacers, the Bucks, I think they're better than the 76ers. So I do think the 76ers are going to be right there in that play-in mix here, and it's all going to come down to the health of Embiid and Paul George is where I'm going.
Yeah, I'm an optimist, and I try not to factor in the health just because I think that's the best they could do, but I get it. It's probably more realistic that they're closer to that playing spot than the top 6 just because of health.
Yep. All right, let's move on over to the end of the Atlantic Division here with the Brooklyn Nets. Last year, they were 32-50, the 11th seed. Their over-under here is 21.5. What are your thoughts on the Brooklyn Nets, who really don't have a superstar outside of Ben Simmons and hoping he's healthy?
Yeah, this is a weird team. I think when we did the preview last year, they were just like an absurd collection of wings, and they still are. They got rid of Mikal Bridges. They still have Simmons, like you said. I think Royce O'Neal is gone. So they made a few moves. Despite being pretty bad, they still have the 23rd best offense in the league. I thought they would be a little lower than that. And their defensive efficiency was at 20th. They're stuck, though, because of all the assets they got in getting Kevin Durant and James Harden. They kind of have to try to stay competitive due to a lack of assets. So they're in a tough spot, and they're not a good team.
They are not a good team at all. Like I think I'm gonna say they're gonna finish basically at the bottom of the Eastern Conference. Like unless Ben Simmons turns out to an All NBA, like first team All NBA type of player, even then that might push them just at the very bottom of the play-in. So definitely, I think they're about a 20-win team this year. So right on that under, and the bottom seed here in the Eastern Conference.
Yep.
All right, and this is our last team here. Sorry, in the Atlantic, not the Nets. The Nets are the least team in the Atlantic, but our last team here is the Toronto Raptors. So 23, 24, 25, and 57, the 12th seed. This year, over-under is 30.5. I'm not sure if they made any big additions here. Not really. They re-signed Scotty Barnes, Emmanuel Quickly. They added Davion Mitchell, and they lost Gary Trent. They drafted Jacoby Walters in the first round of this draft. So that's really it. I don't know. What are your thoughts here, Osama? What are you thinking here? Are they better than that 12 seed? Are they better than 30 wins? What are you thinking?
I think they're a little better than 30 wins, not that much better. I think they can get close to the over. They're a lot better than they sound. With RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickly, Gary Trent. I think that they'll hit that. Last year, I think that they were in a bit of a mess. Scotty Barnes only played, I think, 60 games or so. They got Otto Porter, and he played like maybe 10 games. They're not great, but they're better than 30 wins. I think they can only get better from here.
I disagree with you on that. I think they're right there at 30 wins. They're not. I think we just need to see more growth from Scotty Barnes, and that's really it, because they were kind of like, oh, this is the face of our franchise. This is the guy we need him to carry us. So we just need to see more growth from Scotty Barnes. If he ends up being an all NBA type of guy, then maybe they're better than 30 wins. But I think it pretty much rests on his shoulders, right? And so I think he's not quite there yet, but he's definitely obviously a superstar in the making, and he's going to get there. But I think this year, not there. 30 wins.
There's some teams that are really bad that we have projected underneath them, which is why they're a fringe play-in team. They could spiral down for sure. I think there are some pretty bad teams also in the Eastern Conference. Could be worse.
Yes, it could be worse. Let's head on over here to the Central Division now. We'll jump right in. So one of the better teams here in the Central Division is the Milwaukee Bucks. Last year's record, 49-33, finished as a 3 seed. A lot of weird things going on with them. They fired their head coach halfway through the season, bring in Doc Rivers. Still somehow finished with the 3rd seed here, and then they made a lot of. They didn't make too many additions here. They added Taurean Prince, Gary Trent Jr. ended up here, DeLon Wright ended up here. They lost Malik Beasley. They got rid of Pat Bev. They added AJ Johnson, a guard, with the 23rd pick. So I think the Bucks, they're an interesting team here. And what do you think? Over 51.5 wins this year?
I think they'll be slightly on the under, and I think that they have some issues. I think we both picked them for the 3 seed. They could very easily be the 6 seed, given the lack of depth, and they have some serious perimeter defense issues. They were still the 6th best offense in the league, but they were the 19th worst defense in the league. They did not have a good defensive year, and it showed in the playoffs. Even though they got a pretty good number of games from Giannis and Dame Lillard, Chris Middleton can't stay healthy. They can't defend the 3-point line very well. They didn't really add anyone that makes you go, wow, okay, the Bucks are back. You're kind of just hoping that Brook Lopez kind of maintains the status quo, and maybe you get more games out of Middleton. PJ Tucker is parted ways with the Clippers, and he's expected to sign with Milwaukee. That would be an upgrade to their perimeter defense. But I think that they'll have a hard time, specifically on defense. They can shoot and score their way through games because they have two of the top guys in the league. But it's shaky because they do have some competition in the East.
Yeah, I agree with you on those points, Osama. I do think, though, they're still talented enough where they didn't have Middleton for a lot of this, about half the season last year. So I do think him being kind of fully healthy, coming back into the fold, I do think that does get them to 52 wins. But like you said, right, easily something could happen. Dame and Giannis are not really playing well off each other, and then just like that, they're dropping down to the 6th seed. So I could see it either way, but I think for now, I say they're about a 52-win team and the 3rd seed here in the East. All right, let's move on over here to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Their 23-24 record was 48-34. They were the 4 seed. The over-under for this year is 47.5. They didn't do much. They just re-signed a bunch of their guys, and they drafted Jalen Tyson, a forward, with the 20th pick. So they kind of kept everything the same. They re-signed Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, Donovan Mitchell, Isaac Okoro. So they just kept their core together. So what are your thoughts here? Do you think they can do it again? Can they go over 47.5 wins? Can they be a 48-win team again?
Yes, the Isaac Okoro signing, the one that made Woj quit when he had to tweet it in the middle of the day, that signing. Yeah, I think they could easily be the third seed, Cleveland. I think what their issue was last year was health. They got 50 games from Mobley, 55 from Mitchell, 57 from Garland. Their guys didn't play, and they were still the sixth best defense in the league. Offensively, they had a really tough time. And they got Kenny Atkinson as their new head coach. So I think that they have a ton of like it can only get better from here, given all the youth they have and how great they are defensively. I really liked Craig Porter Jr. last year. I think they signed him from how well he did, given that they had so many issues with their stars not playing. So Cleveland's going to be, they could be the 3 seed. This could be like if the Bucks fall, Cleveland benefits.
So are you saying you could see them as the 4 seed and at 48 wins?
I think so. I mean, this is a stingy defensive team that has a lot of talent. They just didn't. None of their guys played. I think combined between their 3 best players, they all missed over 30 games.
Yeah, yeah. I do think there's some better teams here in the East. I do, like you said, right? Young guys, they kept their core together, healthy, pretty solid team. I do think there's 2 other teams or 2 or 3 other teams like better than them. So I do think that drops them a little bit. Like I think other teams improved, and Cleveland kind of stayed the same, which is fine. Like I think their range is anywhere from like the lowest end of that range is the 6th seed here. So they're well beyond the play-ins, but we'll see. We'll get into some of these other teams here. Actually, one of the other teams that I do think will do better than the Cavs this year is the Indiana Pacers. So last year, Pacers, 47-35, were the 6th seed. Surprising run at the Eastern Conference Finals. This year, 46.5 is their over-under. They added James Wiseman. That was really their big add, but they re-signed all their key guys like Pascal, Obi Toppin, TJ McConnell. They let Jalen Smith walk, but they added a bunch of second-rounder dudes. Not really big difference makers, but I do think what you will see from them is like just having more time playing together, and we kind of saw that. They just weren't good enough to beat Boston. But what do you think, Osama? Are they better than 46.5? Are they better than the 6th seed this year?
Yeah, definitely. I was low on this team. I just didn't know how this was going to shake up, and they were the 2nd best offense in the league. They were the runner-up in the NBA Cup, which was pretty cool that they almost got some silverware. Yeah, I mean, an exciting, really fast-paced team, the way they space the floor, led by Halliburton. I think that the problem is defense. They're the 24th ranked defense last year. So that's a big problem. I think that's the only thing that'll hold them back. They're still a top 5 team in the East. They get a full season of Siakam. I'm interested to see if Benedict Mathurin takes a leap too. And they drafted Jarris Walker last year, who's arguably the best defender in last year's draft, aside from Wembanyama. So I'm interested to see if he gets some run. This will be a good team again this year.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I do think they'll go over that. I do have them here penciled in as the 5th seed here, so ahead of the Cavs for me, and I do think they will go over that 46.5. And like you said, I'm excited to see, does Mathurin take a leap forward? Does Jarris Walker get some playing time? Does he anchor that defense a little bit more for them? Right? Can they run lineups of Siakam, Walker, Halliburton? Those are going to be interesting lineups. And so we'll see. I do really like what the Pacers are building out there, and I do think they are a top 5 seed here in the East for sure.
Yeah, and I think the more Tyrese Halliburton we get to hear, I'm interested to see if he has more than 2 voices when he speaks, because it sounds like he does. So can't wait.
All right, with that, moving on over to the Chicago Bulls. Last year they were 39-43, the 9 seed. Their over and under is 30.5 for this year. They added Josh Giddey, Jalen Smith, Chris Duarte. They re-signed Patrick Williams. They traded away Alex Caruso, lost DeMar DeRozan, Andre Drummond, Javonte Green. They drafted Mateus Bozelis with pick number 11 here in the draft, who's a forward. So interesting stuff the Bulls are doing, but where do you see him, Osama, at over or under on 30.5?
Under. This team is stuck in the mud, man. They're not talented enough to win basketball games. Like they got 25 games from Zach LaVine, and at times they looked better without him. They lost all of their best players for the most part. I think they could fall all the way down to the 12th seed, and they should pray for a lottery pick. They're just not a good basketball team. I don't know what the hell they're doing.
I am 100% with you. I mean, it sounds like they're trying to trade guys like Levine and Vucevic as well to just completely tank there to the bottom and compete with the Nets for some reason at the bottom of this Eastern Conference. But that's definitely what they should be doing. There's no path here to like even the play-ins. I think for them, I think 12th is where they're at, and definitely way under 30 wins for them for sure. All right, let's move on over to the Detroit Pistons. Last year they finished 14-68. They were the 15th seed. This year their over and under is 22.5. They added Malik Beasley. They got Tobias Harris. They added Tim Hardaway Jr. They re-signed Cade Cunningham. They didn't lose much. They lost Taj Gibson, Quentin Grimes, James Wiseman, and then added Ron Holland with the fifth pick overall. So what are your thoughts out there about the Pistons and what they're building out there?
I mean, it can't get worse than last year, right? Didn't they damn near lose like 30 straight games? Like that was awful. So there's no way that it can only go up from here. They'll be better than last year. I think, at least. I think they can get that over just because of how terrible they were. They did show a lot of heart in trying to stay away from that streak extending any further. They added some vets that are good for the culture, with Tobias Harris and Tim Hardaway. Marcus Sasser, I thought he had some bright spots shooting off the bench last year. I love Jaden Ivey. And I think Ivy will have more freedom this year. It seemed like him and Monty Williams weren't eye to eye, and some stories got out that the organization wasn't happy with the way Monty Williams was using Jaden Ivey. So I'm expecting it to be, I think, cohesively a better team. And they did miss Marvin Bagley most of the season. So I think that there's just a lot that can go a little bit better for them. It's not like they're going to make the playoffs, but they'll be 12th, 11th, 12th, something like that.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I do think definitely over 22.5. I'm excited to see Cade Cunningham this year. I do think he's going to be right there on an All-NBA team. He might be third team All-NBA. I do like Ron Holland as well. I think he has a legitimate chance of winning Rookie of the Year this year. So definitely excited for what the Pistons are building. I do see their kind of ceiling there as the 10th seed, where they're just right sneaking in there on the play-in. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I do like what they're building, and I do see they're definitely maybe a few years away from being a contender here in the Eastern Conference.
Yep.
All right. Let's move on over to the Southeast Division. First up, we have the Orlando Magic. They went 47-35 last year as the 5th seed. Their over and under this year is 47.5. They added Contavious Caldwell-Pope. They added Corey Joseph. They re-signed guys like Franz Mo Wagner, Jonathan Isaac. They lost Joe Ingles. They picked up Tristan Da Silva here in the draft with the 18th pick. So what are your thoughts here on the Magic, Osama?
I mean, holy shit. This is a defensively stingy team. They were the second best defense in the league last year, and they added KCP, which is crazy. And Jonathan Isaac is a complete destroyer in the paint. When he's healthy, he's amazing. I think that it can only go up from here offensively. They were the 22nd. They were ranked 22nd in offensive efficiency. So I think that they could just find a scoring punch. I have them at the 7th seed just because there are some other teams I think that have a higher ceiling, higher floor, excuse me. But their ceiling can be way, way higher. They could easily get into the top 5. They can win a lot of games off of defense alone.
Yeah, I'm with you. I really like what the Magic are building on there, and I do see Paolo Banchero as being like, one of the best players here in the league this year, and he's going to showcase that, I think. And I think that's good enough to carry them over 47.5 and take them all the way to the 4 seed here to Sama. That's what I'm thinking. And I do like what they're building defensively. And I think between Banchero and Suggs and Franz Wagner, you got some scoring punch there as well. So we'll see if they can kind of keep that up for a whole season. And I do expect Banchero to be like a all NBA second team type of guy. So definitely see that kind of leap from him this year is what I expect. All right, let's move on over here to the Jimmy Butler's team here, the Miami Heat. 46-36 last year. Were the 8th seed. Over under 44.5. They didn't do much. They added Alec Burks. They lost Caleb Martin. They lost Patty Mills. They drafted Khalil Ware with pick 15 here, so to have some insurance behind Bam. And that's really it. So what are your thoughts here, Osama? Are they better than 44.5?
No, they're not. And my heart hurts to see it, really. I love this organization. I think that they make a lot of great decisions. They have the best coach in the league, but they didn't get any better. Here's what. Let me start with the positive. Defensively, they're arguably the most disciplined team in the league, despite all of their struggles and missing Butler for a number of games. They still had the 5th ranked defense in the league. They did regress shooting. So the year before, when they went to the conference finals, they had the finals. They had the number one 3-point shooting in the league. Goodness, and then they went all the way down to 21st in offense last year. So they're in a tough spot. Jimmy Butler's in a contract year. They could decide to trade him and try to get something out of it before he parts ways with them. But I don't see that unless he's healthy and he goes crazy. I don't see them doing any better than the play-in.
Yeah, I'm there with you. I do think they're good enough to get like 45 wins, and that's kind of their cap there for me. 45 wins, somewhere around the 7th, 8th seed there as well. Because they pretty much maintain status quo, but you never know. Sometimes these guys find these random G leaguers who turn into like really good bench players. So maybe they'll find another Gabe Vincent or Max Strauss or whoever, right? And turn that guy into a lights out shooter that can mesh here with Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. And I guess maybe Tyler Hero has a bounce back year. Maybe that's the change there, but we'll see. I don't expect much for them. I think status quo is kind of where they're at. All right, let's move on to the Atlanta Hawks. They had a 23-24 record. Their 23-24 record was 36-46. They were the 10th seed. Over and under this year's 35.5. They lost a couple of guys here. They added really not a lot. They added Larry Nance Jr., Dyson Daniels, Cody Zeller. They lost DeJounte Murray, Sadiq Bey, AJ Griffin, and then they drafted Zach Reisher here at pick number 1. So they got the number 1 pick. They added a guy in a very arguably weak draft class who could be a guy, could not be a guy. 35.5, Osama. Are they over or under on that?
They're going to be under, which I like the direction they were headed in initially when they started drafting a bunch of guys in the first round. Kevin Huerter, Trae Young, DeAndre Hunter. I like the direction they were headed in, and then it just didn't work for whatever reason. They can't play defense. They were the 29th ranked defense in the league last year, and they traded their best perimeter defender away, which is DeJounte Murray. They have a case to be arguably the worst defense in the league this year. This could get ugly, and they might blow it up.
Yeah, I can definitely see that happening, and maybe this is the year they finally trade Clint Capella. Who knows? And let him not be their starting center anymore. Every year, it's rumors Clint Capella is getting traded, but I do see them finishing maybe like 33 wins, 34 wins, if all goes well, and I think that might be good enough here for the 9th seed because they're just some really bad teams here in the East, which we're going to probably end with here. A few of the worst teams here on the East, which is one of them is the Charlotte Hornets here. Last year they were 21-61, 13th seed. Over under this year is 27.5. They didn't add much. They brought in Taj Gibson and Harry Giles. They lost David Bertans and Reggie Jackson. They drafted Tajan Salin. I'm not sure I'm not saying that guy's name right, but with the pick number 6, didn't even know who this guy was, and I was surprised he was the number 6 pick. So I like what they're doing, but tell me, Osama, what do you think? 27.5 is a stretch for them this year?
Yeah, I was high on them last year. I thought that like they'd find something with LaMelo, and I like Brandon Miller. I think he's like a really talented player, kind of figuring things out. But they were terrible last year. They were 28th in offense, 29th in defense. LaMelo only played 22 games last year. I don't have anything good to say really. I think they're going to pray for the lottery and try and get. I think this is supposed to be a better draft next year, so maybe they get something else that boosts them because, yeah, this is not a good team at all.
Not at all, not at all. I think they just got to let Brendan Miller play and kind of grow into his game. And so I think that's it, right? Like, we'll see. They're going to be definitely under, I think, definitely at the bottom here. Maybe fringe play-in team, maybe if all goes well for them. But the 11th seed, give or take, is where I have them at. All right, and the last team here in the Eastern Conference, definitely the worst team in the Eastern Conference, and the Nets are giving them some run for their money here, is the Washington Wizards. Finished 15-67 here, finished 14th, over under 22.5. They added Sadiq Bey, they added Malcolm Brogdon, they added Jonas Valanciunas. They lost Danny Avdija. They lost Tyus Jones. They lost Landry Shamet. They added Alex Sarr here with the number 2 pick. They added Bub Carrington with pick number 14. They added Keyshawn George with pick 24. So they added 3 rookies here. What are your thoughts here, Osama? 22.5, over, under?
Under, I think. I think they're bad. They won 15 games, and I think they were really reliant on Jordan Poole possibly making a few of his 35 shots or whatever he took a game, just hoping Jordan Poole's microwave heats up. They added a bunch of guys that are similar in a vein of Jordan Poole, where maybe this guy will go off this night, maybe this night this guy will go off. And that's kind of how the team is structured. When you were rattling off like the number of guys that left, I didn't know if you were actually going to stop or not. I thought you were going to just say the whole team left. That's what it sounded like. You were just going to rattle off like 8 or 9 names and go, oh, there's no one left on the team, actually.
Yeah, pretty much. I do like some of the veteran guys they added, but I see them, like right there. Maybe they squeeze by and get 23 wins here, but that still probably leaves them at the bottom of the conference. And like they said, they just got to see some of these rookie guys develop, and maybe they got one. Maybe they hit out of one out of 3 on this in this draft, right? 3 first-round picks. So, and yeah, Jordan Poole, we know what he is, what he does. Nothing impressive to write about outside of that 1 year where he lifted the Warriors to a championship with Steph Curry. But yeah, I think that's the Wizards. Terrible team. They're stuck at the bottom. And that's really where they're at. So, Osama, last question here as we wrap up the Eastern Conference preview. Who is making it out of the East for you?
I want to say the Knicks, but I think it's gonna be the Celtics again. I think they're too talented.
I like it. I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. I'm gonna say the Knicks. I'm gonna go the opposite here. I think we definitely agreed on this, that it's going to be Celtics, Knicks, Eastern Conference, bearing any injuries. Is that where your head is at, Osama?
Yep. You know what? I'm changing my mind. I'm picking the Knicks.
Changing your mind?
I'm changing my mind.
All right.
Yeah.
Join the bandwagon.
I'm changing my mind. I'm allowed to do it. Yeah. Let's go Knicks.
All right. With that, we think the Knicks are winning the East, and that's the end of the Eastern Conference preview. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Look us up on all the social media platforms. Hope you enjoyed this, and check out our Western Conference preview as well.